Good evening. My name is Jenna Birch, and I am the Director of Alumni Relations at Westchester University. Thank you for joining us for the WCU 150 History and Heritage Exhibition Lecture and Tour Series. Before we begin, I would like to let everyone know that our next lecture and tour will focus on the history of architectural styles at WCU. Please save the date for Wednesday, January 12th at 7 p.m. and register online at wcualumni.org. You can also find the complete list of upcoming lectures on the Alumni Association website and recordings of previous events. Please remain on mute until the end of this presentation, at which time you will be invited to provide feedback and questions related to the subject. For the best experience, we recommend having your viewing screen set to speaker, which will allow you to view the presentation in the largest format. This can be found on the top right-hand corner of your screen. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Museum Director Michael D. Giovine and our guest speaker, Director of Athletics, Terry Beattie.
Hi, I'm Michael D. Giovine. I'm the Director of the Museum of Anthropology and Archaeology, which together with the Alumni Association has sponsored and put on this exhibition. For those of you who haven't zoomed into any of these before or haven't seen the exhibition, I just wanted to mention a couple of things very quickly before we get into our tour. As the director also of the Museum Studies program, I wanted to say that this is the capstone course that students complete annually for their Museum Studies program, for their curriculum. This is entirely student co-curated by about 15 students that work from January all the way until we opened in September, researched everything about the university, sourced artifacts, did collections management, worked with a lot of experts, such as the Director of Athletics, to understand better the artifacts that we have and the history and the stories behind them. And I'm really excited to have two student curators with me. So we have Stoyack and Sadie Patterson, and they worked in specifically on several of the exhibits here in the exhibition. And then of course we have Terry Beattie, our Director of Athletics here, that they're going to show them around, I think, and give you a little tour of this exhibition. The one thing I will say very quickly before I hand it over to you guys is that, the thing that you were doing here is that when we were thinking about what kind of an exhibition did we want to put up, what form should it take, we were divided a little bit in terms of this very comprehensive timeline kind of idea versus kind of the deep dives into a lot of topics. And so what we did is both, in a way. We have this great timeline that a lot of alumni like to come and read very closely, that really talk about all the different developments of the university, from our beginnings as a normal school for teaching elementary school teachers, all the way through the Westchester State Teachers College era, when we were a 4-year teachers college, up to the State College era, where we're a liberal arts college, to the 80s and onwards, when we were the comprehensive largest public university in the state of Pennsylvania. And then they focused primarily on kind of doing deep dives into 3 main areas. We have academics, which are represented by these two pieces here in the center, student life, and we see a number of these, including athletics, and we'll talk about that, and also diversity and inclusion. And I think what's really cool, and I'm really glad that you're here for them to show you around a little bit. Now they haven't seen this already, but is also that there's sports everywhere. I mean, I have people coming in and being like, "Oh, there's a lot of sports in here." I said, "Well, Terry gave me a lot of stuff. What can I say?" But actually, it does show that our athletic program was integral, to even from the beginning of teaching these, 18-year-old, high school aged kids, students, really, how to be proper adults, how to be proper teachers, and health education was a big part of that. So anyway, I don't know. You want to take us around a little bit?
Yes, of course. So, as Dr. Giovine was saying, when we started in 1871, the normal school was all about teaching high school age kids to teach elementary school teachers. At first, we were just getting the ball rolling, so not a lot of balls rolling, not a lot of sports, until 1880. We played our first baseball game against Worrell's school for the normal. That was a private normal school. And that was our first. That really set the foundation for everything after that. A decade later, 1890, we brought on the Erringers. Clyde and Ella, husband and wife, they were brought in as joint directors to run the physical education program. So they were now teaching people to be gym teachers. Kind of morphed into the College of Health Sciences today. Clyde went ahead and designed the old gym. It was the first gym in the US with an indoor track. It also had a bowling alley. While on the subject of track, I just want to mention in 1896, we won the second ever Penn Relays, 4x440. We still have that banner up in special collections.
And I think the indoor track, we had some alumni that came in the other day, and they were saying only 2 people at a time could run on it. I think just one in each direction and everything else. And that gym is pretty much where our quad is today. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore, but yeah, absolutely.
Right, so 1895 was a big year for sports. We played the Philadelphia Phillies, the normal school. We lost 14-3, obviously.
Oh, not obviously. They were a little older.
Yes, but we also went ahead and played the Baltimore Orioles a number of years later in 1937. But this was the year we decided we have a couple of sports going on. We're going to need some body to govern them. We founded the Athletics Association here. And that was actually largely student run until sometime in the early 1900s. The students had some control over where the funds were going. And then they decided, hey, that's probably not the best idea.
So they hired an athletic director, is that? Or?
Yes, they hired a full-time person to run all of that. Also, up until I want to say 1906, we didn't have a football team, and every year you see students pressing for one, and the trustees kept saying no, they didn't want the liability, but eventually they caved. So 1906 was the first intercollegiate meet for girls. They played tennis against Swarthmore College here, and then we had another first, an even bigger first, if you will. Mr. Beattie, if you don't mind explaining our rugby ball here.
Sure. Westchester University sponsored women's rugby as a varsity sport first in 2007. It had been a club sport prior to that, and we elevated it to varsity status. And then in September of that year, we played Eastern Illinois, who was also an NCAA varsity program. And it was the first time 2 NCAA varsity rugby programs played each other. So it was a very big deal for rugby and for our women. And we're still, Eastern Illinois, unfortunately, no longer has a program.
Oh, is that right?
But our women's rugby program is still going strong and won a NYRA national championship in 2019 and finished runner-up this year. So from our early beginnings as a varsity program to currently, we've had a tremendous amount of success with our women's rugby team.
And we actually had one of the rugby team members help you curate the athletics as well. So unfortunately, she couldn't be here, but it's great. So I think what's cool about this rugby ball, I think, is that all the Eastern Illinois women signed that one, and then I guess we signed another one and we exchanged it. Is that
correct? Yes,
yeah.
To commemorate the first time 2 varsity programs played each other.
That's great. That's really cool.
Yes.
What else do you have?
That's awesome. So also we had a bicycle team around this time. They would 1899 it was founded. They would compete. It was like track racing. It had as many as 40 kids at a time. And if you can imagine the bicycles of the day, that probably would be funny to us now watching. 1923, we had the most dominant football season we ever had. We went undefeated. Not only that, but we outscored opponents something like 205-7 over the whole season. And in 1925, we won the state championship in basketball with only 4 players on the floor. Back in that day, you could only have 7 players on a team. And when 3 fouled out in the last 2 minutes, it was essentially a power play in hockey for the other team in basketball, but we came out with the victory.
That's cool.
And then here we have the transition to the Westchester State Teachers College, broken up into a couple of different colleges. beyond just the normal school. This was our first goat mascot. The boys and girls got together. The girls raised some money, $10 to buy a goat, and the boys took a trip to a local farm to go get it and bring it to a football game. Now, our first unofficial mascot for games was Principal Phillips's, our third principal's dog, Puck. But in 1904, he was tragically hit by a trolley car that he tried to fight and died. But yes, that was the very start of Rami right here in 1934. I want to talk about our military case. So in 1942, the Army, Navy, and Marines organized a field day here on campus, and they played games like tug of war, volleyball, they had archery competitions, and then they held a picnic with all the students afterward. So that was awesome. Give everyone a much needed sense of patriotism at that time. Also, we started construction on Hollinger Fieldhouse in 1949, but it stopped only a year or two later because of steel shortages from the Korean War. Now, as many of you may know, we finished that in 1955, and the reason they allowed it to keep being built was because the justification was under the Civil Defense Act. They were thinking that in the case of a nuclear attack, the water from the swimming pool could be used for drinking water. So that's kind of what got Hollinger Fieldhouse finished when it did. 1957, we had the first full body Rami costume. If you see pictures of it, it would be scary to us today. The mascot
That's
of
the point, right? You can't scare the other two.
Exactly. Wayne Hussey, he would say that students would try to kidnap him, basically just take him and run away with him as a sort of prank. Funnily enough, the next year, 1958, we went back to a goat called Prince Ramses I. And he apparently had a very good life. He had a goat farm and 20 wives to go back to after every game.
Only if you want.
Yes. So then we go on to the Westchester State College era. 1961 was a huge year for sports. We won the NCAA tournament in soccer, and only one team scored more than a single goal against us all season. I believe that was in the championship game, if I'm not mistaken. Now, in 1950, before there was the NCAA, they used to vote on who the national champion of soccer would be. And we were actually voted the champion in 1950 by whatever board. So gymnastics. This was the year of international gymnastics at Westchester. First, we had the Japanese team come in and demonstrate. And then there was a huge televised event where the US Olympic women's team and the Soviet Olympic women's team went head to head in a competition. Russell Sturzenbecker was the honorary coach of the US Olympic women's team. The Soviet men's did not compete, or our Olympic men did not come out, but they also put on an exhibition afterwards.
So
And
do you remember what this poster, which Sturzenbecker had? This is, what was it? Our team then went to Poland.
yeah, a
right?
couple months after, it was the men's and women's national teams went to Poland, Czechoslovakia, and the Soviet Union on a tour, but they trained here first. And this year also the Finnish team came in at one point. So I guess they really got the ball rolling, got a lot of international recognition here. Yes, so
We have lots of teams that practice here too. I think we'll get to in the 80s. We'll certainly have somebody else.
so boxing was founded in 1955. But in 1971, we had Al McChesney and Dean Clemens began coaching. They were beloved by the students. One of them, I can't remember who, but got together with the coach of University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and put together the national championship for boxing, which was a club sport, very much not sanctioned by the NCAA, still isn't, if I'm right.
But I mean, in terms of the boxing, I remember because this was hanging in Hollinger as well, this thing. And apparently these two coaches were really loved by the students, and they also taught kind of this very holistic way of like being gentlemen, as well. And I think, I wanted to bring Terry into this a little bit because I know, I think that that's something that still carries through today, doesn't it? In terms of kind of teaching more than just winning games, right? It's kind of a little bit more.
Oh, absolutely. As we mentioned in 1961,
Yeah.
the soccer championship, that's one of 18 national championships that we have here at Westchester. And we're certainly proud of those successes, but we're also very proud of the academic successes and then what our student athletes do in the community and how they represent themselves, their teams, and the university. So absolutely, our coaches do a great job in developing the entire person,
Right.
not just, to go out and compete and win games, but to be good citizens and productive folks after they graduate from Westchester.
And I mean, if I could ask, I know probably every coach is different, but I mean, what are some of the ways that they do this? I mean,
So
is
we've-
policy, or is there something that?
Yeah, we've really shifted a focus a number of years ago, back around 2010, 2011, where we started our student athlete success program.
Okay.
Our senior women administrator, Kelly Milliner, really was the spearhead of that and still is. And we spend a lot of time developing our student athletes off the field as well as on the field. So programs like our Michael Horrocks Leadership Institute, our academic mentoring program that's led by Dr. Tammy James here on campus. We have a nutrition education and fueling program where we're very closely with Dr. Karpinski in the nutrition department and the College of Health Sciences. And then we partner with a lot of different offices on campus, student affairs and academic affairs, where we provide professional development, personal development, a focus on mental health. We have a very close relationship with Dr. Rachel Daltrey in the Counseling Center. We do career panels where we bring in alums to talk to our student athletes. So really, if you look at our recent success, obviously we have long story, but our recent success, I think you can attribute to a lot of the development that we're doing off the field has led to success on the field. And we're very proud of that.
Yeah, no, you should be. And I know I have a number of student athletes. They're always great. They sit in the front of the room, they all sit in the front of the room and participate. So it's really nice to have them there. It's really great.
Great.
And of course, we do have some nutrition. Nutrition is just, represented here. It's not about athletics, but certainly this is a newer initiative that the nutrition department is doing called Ram Chefs, where they're teaching people with developmental disabilities how to be chefs, how to cook, how to socialize. And I mean, so I think the nutrition department and health sciences in general really kind of, have their hands in a lot of things to really mold our students.
Absolutely. Fueling your body is really the first part of success, whether it be academically.
Sure.
So our fueling program provides, healthy snacks for our student athletes. So, after practice, if they have to run to class immediately, don't have time to grab a full meal at the dining hall or back home, they can grab, healthy snacks from the fueling stations that are provided. So again, it's not just fueling for athletic success, but in the classroom too, because you come off the practice field or the court, going right to class without something, to eat. So that's really helped both athletically and academically.
And I let my students eat in class, right? You have your coffee in the class.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Aaron. I thought it was interesting to kind of break into that a little bit.
Absolutely. So 1971, around this time, actually a couple years earlier, but Carol Ekman established the first women's basketball intercollegiate tournament, and it would, in a way, kind of morph into the NCAA tournament that the women have today. Started in 1969, but we won in this year, 1971. 3 of the first 4 years we won. We played in the finals the other year, and we won the inaugural tournament right here in Hollinger Fieldhouse. Carol Ekman was a great coach, and one of the players of that inaugural tournament, Marion Washington, would go on to play in a women's Olympic team that also won gold. So here we have the race and diversity case. I curated this over the summer. We've had a series of people such as Jesse Owens in 1942, who was brought over by the College Club, which was, you can kind of think of it as a forerunner to the Black Student Union. They brought him over to talk about his experiences. In 1970, Muhammad Ali came as part of Black Culture Week, and he talked about, his identity, being both Black and Islamic, and obviously his storied boxing career. And another fun fact here before we go, in 1917, Bayard Rustin's aunt, Bessie Ann, won the 100-yard dash in the intercollegiate track meet. We would have a track meet just for everyone at the school to come, kind of like a field day type thing. And she won that. So the Eagles trained here on the South Campus athletic fields from 1980 to 1995, as I'm sure many of you watching are well aware. They would also hang out at the Rat. They would stay in Schmidt Hall. I'm sure all of you have your Rat stories. You may even have Rat stories with the Eagles. I've heard a couple. Maybe we won't tell them now, but you might not know that they played on Wayne Field. This was all for summer training in 1938, 40, 44, and 45. And here we have the jersey of Randall Cunningham. He was our quarterback during much of this period, and he would become the first Black quarterback to be a starter in the Pro Bowl.
I have to say, a lot of people come in here and they take pictures of that jersey. And I have to qualify that this is not Randall Cunningham's jersey. This is a, it's a fan jersey. It's an authentic from the 90s, but I mean, it's not, people are like, wow, yeah, Randall Cunningham's jersey. That's one thing that we don't, we have lots of other things, Frederick Douglass's autograph and stuff, but that's not Cunningham's original.
Yeah, so this is our club's case. You might not see anything specifically about sports in here, but that's not to say that we don't have a good deal of club sports here at Westchester.
Not to put you on the spot, do you know how many club sports we have roughly?
I do not. I know of those that we have are very successful. Our club sports have won national championships, competed for national championships. Our men's rugby team was just out west and playing for a national championship just recently. So yes, we have a lot of very high level varsity athletes, but we also have a tremendous amount of very high level club athletes representing Westchester as well. So.
Sure. And what does it take? Was there a transition where you could start as a club, and then is there a way that the club can make it to an official, sport?
There is a
varsity
process, yes, that a club would have to go through in order to seek recognition as a varsity sport. We currently have 24 varsity sports, so we have one of the largest in the country. It would be difficult, I think, to add some additional ones at this point, but women's rugby made the transition from club to varsity, so it has happened recently. There definitely is a process that we would have to go through, but it's possible.
I mean, I think what I like about this case, the message in this case that the students who curated it wanted to kind of convey, this is something Charlie Warner said to us as well when he spoke to the students, just like you spoke to our students as well, was that, what's nice about clubs is that you get a barometer on kind of the interests, both of the university and the student body there, but also the greater society. I mean, we have in the 1890s, we have, temperance clubs and, where they're pledging not to drink and that kind of stuff. And today we have, esports, like the Rocket League and Super Smash Brothers and everything. But I mean, I think the boxing club is a good example. I mean, boxing isn't as popular as it used to be. Like when my grandfather, my father, we'd watch boxing and, kind of came up and it was flourished for a long time and then kind of isn't as it's not part of the interest of the student body as much anymore.
Right.
So I guess something about the varsity sports, there has to be a level of staying power, as well. I think that has to be there, right?
Absolutely. And again, there is the federal law of Title IX that we have to follow. So making sure we're providing equal opportunities based on interest for male and female. So all of that would go into, decision-making for, and adding in any additional varsity sports in the future.
Yeah, cool. So we have in the 2000s.
Yes, so we have the tragic events of September 11th, in which one of our quarterbacks during the 80s, Michael Horrocks, was killed. He was a Marine as well. He was the co-pilot of Flight 175, which crashed in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And nowadays, he is commemorated with a statue at Farrell Stadium. And as I understand, we have a leadership institute named after him in his honor.
So can you explain the Leadership Institute a little bit more?
Sure. And get a little background. So in 2010, 2011, our football team had two losing seasons, two seasons below 500. And I spoke to our head coach, Bill Zwan, currently our head coach and all-time winningest coach here at Westchester now. What was the difference? Why those 2 years? And he immediately said leadership in the locker room. That was the issue that he felt that his two teams in 2010, 2011 had. So I was a part of the student leadership project team with Charlie Warner, as you just mentioned, and we started a conversation about how do we develop leaders in athletics. So that was the start of our leadership programming, and we named it after Michael Horrocks. So it has grown now to a multi-level program. So we have programming for first-year students, emerging leaders, and then our named captains. So there's a lot of different opportunities for our students to get involved in leadership development. And I can tell you since 2010, 2011, we've won 5 national championships. So again, there's a direct correlation between developing leaders and the success on the field. So we're very proud of that program and what it's helped us accomplish.
It also keeps like this sense of unity too among the, and civility within a team as well. And so my own teams.
Absolutely. One of the biggest things we hear from the students that participate is getting together with other student leaders from other teams, and sharing their stories and maybe the challenges of leadership that they face, and talking it through with their peers and how they handle it. So again, it's developing leadership, but it's also developing relationships amongst the teams. And that's been a great benefit.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yes, so at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Sadie.
So I helped put together this specific case here on the sports at Westchester. And the story that we kind of wanted to tell with this was that, it started off not having too many programs, not having so much of an athletic focus. It was mostly informal interest of students, but that kind of grew into almost 25 programs that we have now here. And this exhibit kind of highlights some of the specific achievements, especially, people have gone on to be in the Olympics, faculty and students alike. And it kind of starts here with this soccer ball from a Westchester game with Duke University. I think it's kind of fun because the students wrote specifically who scored what goals on the ball. And then when we move down here, we have the plaque of Bill Sharp, who was a 1956 Olympian here at Westchester. Aaron wanted me to specifically mention that he was very good at ping pong. And we also have these track spikes made of genuine kangaroo leather that are my favorite part of this exhibit. I think they're pretty interesting. When you move this way, we have the plaque of Sandy Fields. She was an Olympic judge 2 times, and she was also a member of the faculty here at Westchester. She taught some of the sports courses. She was a coach for the women's gymnastics team, and she also actually taught some English courses from time to time because she had a minor in English. So she was a really big help. We actually interviewed her for this exhibit, and she was telling us about some of her experiences at Westchester and how meaningful it was for her to coach these students. She talked about when they went abroad and how Westchester was this renowned school for gymnastics even back in the 70s. And it was really interesting. She said her favorite part was the connections that she made with students and that are still, she's still in contact with a lot of alumni from then. And then down here, this is our field hockey area. This highlights specifically Bonnie Gross, who was a coach here at Westchester, and she actually coached the women's field hockey team in the Olympics in, I don't remember the year, 1984. And this was a field hockey stick from that time.
her jacket, signed pictures of the team. And we believe that these are field hockey spikes from somewhere between the 20s and the 40s, but we're having a difficult time figuring that out.
We need to figure out if it's kangaroo leather.
Yeah. And then at the bottom here, we have a picture of Edward J. Coyle Jr., who got his PhD here at Westchester. He was a Paralympian. That's actually a picture of him swimming the English Channel back in 1995. And he ran, I believe it was a 9-minute mile here at Westchester his sophomore year, even though he had difficulty with both of his legs. So that was a huge achievement. And then here we have the hat of Neil Serpigo, who was a baseball team coach here for 17 years. And that's who the baseball stadium is named after today, baseball field. And then our last thing that we want to talk about here is this trophy that Westchester won from 2018 to 2019. It's the Learfield College Directors Cup. And what this trophy is awarded for is kind of an overall ranking of how well that the sports do through the year. So it looks at each of the sports programs, assigns them points, and then puts up all the ones in the league and sees who's in the top 10. We made the top 10 for Division II in those years. And it kind of shows just how much that Westchester sports have grown since our early beginnings.
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Sadie. I know that when we were going through all of the artifacts, that was the one artifact that you really wanted us to put in. And I said, well, we're gonna put like flowers in it or something. But I mean, I think, why'd you want this one in?
So again, it's
We have a lot of trophies. Right? We could have put a lot of different ones in.
absolutely. And again, the trophies that we have represent individual accomplishments of teams, right? We have national championships when teams win a national championship. But the Learfield Trophy represents is your overall athletic program success. Mm-hmm. So as Sadie said, you're assigned points by your finish at the NCAA tournament. Okay. So again, it's a ranking amongst all of the Division II schools in the country. Mm-hmm. The PSAC Dixon Trophy is a trophy awarded for your finish in the conference amongst our 18 conference peers. However, that's all of Division II. In that year, we finished 8th in the country. Mm-hmm. So it represents the overall program success. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things I'm most proud of being the athletic director here, is that we don't focus just on one or two sports. We're not just a football school. We are not just a basketball school. And that trophy represents that, how all of our teams perform. And without all of our teams having tremendous amount of success, we wouldn't have finished 8th in the country. So that's why that one is so special, because it represents all of our teams, not just one.
Right, yeah. You can see that all those initiatives that you're talking about kind of come together.
Absolutely.
Culminate. So did they give one out in 2020 during the pandemic? I mean, I'm very curious about what you did in the pandemic anyway. What did we do?
Well,
Sorry, that's a curveball
sure,
question.
No. It's still very fresh. 18, 19, yeah, that was the 18-19 academic year.
Right.
In March of 2020, as we know, as COVID hit and lockdown started, our spring seasons were cut short. So there was no PSAC Dixon Trophy awarded that year because we didn't finish our spring sports. And nor was it awarded last year because there were no fall or winter sports in the conference. So we spent, again, the beginnings of the pandemic in a remote fashion. Mm-hmm. Fall of 2020, our student athletes were back home or wherever. Coaches did a fantastic job keeping them engaged, doing virtual workouts, trying to figure out ways to keep them motivated through very difficult times. And then we were fortunate enough to be allowed back to campus to practice and compete last spring. And our spring sports did compete, and our fall and winter sports had opportunity to get together and train in preparation for this year. So, we played, women's lacrosse, baseball, all of our spring sports. Women's softball won their regional championship for the 3rd season in a row. Our women's lacrosse team, advanced to the NCAA tournament. So again, having been remote for an entire fall to have that success and the COVID protocols and the things that our coaches had to do, our athletic trainers had to do, our staff, made it for a very challenging year. But as always, our student athletes and our coaches stepped up to meet those challenges. And we had another great fall this year.
That's great.
So it's been very exciting to see.
I'm sure it was a challenging time, but it's exciting to see how they can kind of reemerge and have that resilience. Certainly, I got out of shape over the pandemic, so I'm glad that they were able to really, stay competitive. Yeah,
Absolutely.
great. Yeah. So Aaron, anything else that we have here?
The only other thing we have past this is the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade drumhead. So this is from our performance in 2016, but we also performed that 30 years earlier in 1986, as well as a couple other years. Our band has played at a lot of sporting events, not just at Westchester, but also for
Eagles,
Eagles,
the
Steelers,
Giants.
Jets, and Giants.
Yeah,
I wanted to
Steelers.
say Phillies. Eagles, baseball. And well, actually, we did play at the Phillies World Series parade as well. So we've been, just as we've had success in athletics, we've had success in the band, translating to them being invited to, the biggest stages in America.
Yeah. And I just remember, I just took my youngest son, who's 9, and some of his friends to see one of our football games. And yeah, they were really totally into it. They were really excited. And then you get the marching band that came out, and they had no idea that the marching band was their first football game. And they're like, oh my God, what is it? What is this? This is great, and they are really impressive, and they really add something to the games as well.
Oh, absolutely. They make for one of the better environments at football in Division II. They're outstanding to be partnered with.
Sure.
And we also have pep bands at basketball.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So, and that certainly adds to the environment in Hollinger Fieldhouse. Our opponents do not like playing in Hollinger Fieldhouse, and that's largely due to our pep band and to the support of all of our students and fans. So.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah. Well, is there anything else? What are you thinking as you look around here? Is there anything that you wanted to say? I can't.
Sure. I mean, it's
so
really
much.
to think back to to the early beginnings and then the success and what an integral part athletics has played here at Westchester from the 1800s, as Aaron pointed out. Again, it is a big part of our culture here at Westchester. I know a lot of our alumni that participated, are still very strong supporters of Westchester University and athletics because of their involvement. Sure. And we see that with our clubs and fraternities and sororities. It's, involvement and engagement certainly helps, build that relationship with your university. So to see it all, in one room and to be able to kind of put it all together, even, I've been here for 17 years. And a lot of what Aaron shared, it was new to me.
Oh, wow.
So it's definitely exciting to be a part of such a storied, program. And again, I hope we're doing everyone proud and continuing the success. Again, not only athletically, but what our student athletes are doing in the classroom and how we're serving the community as well.
Yeah, how are you serving the community? What are some of the initiatives? You do a lot of community service, right?
We do,
Yeah.
we do. We average about 1,200, in excess of 1,200 hours of community service a year of our student athletes. And one of the other areas just to highlight is Division II's philanthropy is Make-A-Wish. And we have been able to raise through our Student Athlete Advisory Council's efforts enough money to be able to reveal a wish to a deserving child. So we were able to do that 5 consecutive years. And again, to have that reveal on campus and to see the excitement of the child is definitely something that has a tremendous impact on our student athletes to see the result of their efforts. It's not just, so when they're out canning or they're asking people for donations at a home event, to see what that leads to and the joy that they can bring to a child is really special. So
that's great. That's great. Yeah. So I don't know, are we good? Do we have other thoughts? Do we have questions maybe? Any questions from the audience? Because that would be interesting too.
Oh, yes, a correction from earlier. Michael Horrocks was the second pilot on the plane that crashed into the second tower, not the one that went down in Shakesville. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Green.
Terry, I have a question. This is Mike Pike talking.
Hi, Mike.
How are you?
Good, thanks.
How many teams, I know the basketball team has a mentor program, and I'm a mentor for one of the players on the team. How many other teams at Westchester have mentor programs?
Formalized programs like men's basketball has created, I don't believe we do, honestly. Women's lacrosse has done it in the past. And they very may well be doing it currently, Mike, but yeah, the program that Coach Blair has developed is certainly been very advantageous for our student athletes, and I think for our mentors as well, to develop those relationships and to help them, our student athletes with, just another person to go to talk to and develop those connections, which may lead to career opportunities or, other, off the court relationships. So it's a fantastic program and something we should probably be doing more of, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that assessment because I'm with my fifth mentee, and over the years, I keep in touch with all my previous mentees. I've been able to help some of them and point them in career directions. I think it's a fabulous way to connect with our student athletes.
Absolutely. Thank you for being a part of it, Mike.
It's an honor.
How do you go about getting mentors? Do you know?
So it's a program that Damian Blair, our head men's basketball coach, started, and Mike might be able to provide some more insight, but he's reached out to alums and supporters of the program to garner interest, and then he pairs the mentor with a current player, and there's usually a meet the players event at the beginning of the season where they can get to know each other, and then that is just kind of an organic relationship develops, and Mike's one of many tremendous mentors that certainly help the student athletes not only through their season but as they leave.
Yeah.
So
yeah, sounds like it's a lasting kind of relationship.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a comment.
Yes.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I would like to comment on the growth of the sports information. It's been excellent. It adds a lot, and the website gets better all the time. And another important thing, especially for us older people, is the number of events that are now streamed. And all that helps. And I'm sure that will help build support. And I just want to compliment the two students also. I thought I knew a lot after 60 some years of following sports, but they were very good.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Yeah, there's been absolutely a major shift in the role of the sports information office in collegiate athletics, from its beginnings of doing just statistics at a game and sharing information with the newspaper so you could open up the paper and see the score the next morning to as you said, live streaming the majority of our home events. Social media is now a big part of it. So it's absolutely vital to our engagement with our alums, to our supporters, to the families and friends that can't attend. Had a meeting this afternoon with a gentleman who talked about a friend of his watching overseas, being able to watch Westchester baseball games from overseas. And it's a big recruiting and retention piece for us too. So we have to keep up, and we will continue to do that and try to represent Westchester University and the athletics department the best way we can. It's great.
Terry, Fred Hogue here.
Hi, Fred.
What kinds of plans do you see coming down the road here in the next few years for Westchester Athletics?
Some of the biggest things, Fred, are probably our facility investments. You know, even during a pandemic and being remote, the university still invested in a number of athletic facility upgrades. You know, at a time where I wouldn't have been surprised if they hadn't. You know, just in the last couple of years, we replaced our track with a top of the line surface. As you know, the baseball field went under a major renovation, and we'll be able to use that this spring for the first time in a year. And softball is currently going through a very similar renovation. Hollinger Fieldhouse has had investments over the years. You know, it's an old facility. I think, Aaron, you said 1954, 55. But we like to say it has character. And it's, you know,
And new lockers now.
yes, we've invested. We have, you know, new men's and women's basketball locker rooms. The volleyball locker room got a major renovation. Our athletic training room, our lobby area with our new Hall of Fame display and digital monitor. So again, we're doing what we can with the resources we have, and Hollinger is a great venue. If we played in a 8,000 seat arena with 1,000 people in the crowd, we wouldn't have the same atmosphere as we do. And there are plans for some renovations in the future at Stursbecker to improve, you know, the athletic spaces, provide locker rooms for all of our teams. Unfortunately, we don't have locker room space for every team here at Westchester, but we will soon. So, you know, those are the major new things, Fred, and we'll continue to build upon what we have, and you know, strive to, you know, get in that top 10 of the Learfield, and hopefully someday, you know, be number one, you know, through the support of the university administration first and foremost, and then, you know, our friends and supporter like yourself and your family.
Yes, we have a comment in chat from Paula Turosi saying, we would love to see the growth of athletic training at Westchester and its impact in the state and nationally.
Yeah, our athletic training program is, I would say it currently is one of the best in the country. It's a different model than a lot of universities. Our athletic training faculty are teaching in the classroom, and then those students work with the faculty and our graduate assistants with the student athletes at practice and in competition. So we have a tremendous group of athletic trainers, our faculty members and our GAs that work with and support our student athletes. And it's a great model. And I think a lot of our peer institutions are jealous of what we have. You know, and athletic training, again, is part of the College of Health Sciences, but, you know, a number of graduates have gone on, and currently Eric Sugarman is the head athletic trainer with the Minnesota Vikings currently. Scott Sheridan, another Westchester graduate, was the head athletic trainer for the Philadelphia Phillies during their World Series run. So, yeah, I mean, again, a big part of our success is our athletic training program, and they have a great reputation, and we're very humbled to have them work with us.
And they're great colleagues as well. I mean, I work with a lot of the faculty in health sciences and athletic training, kinesiology, on the IRB and everything. And they're great people. They do a lot of research. I mean, there's actually, it's funny because we don't have, this is our research case, and we specifically didn't put any research in athletic training in there because we have so much, you know, around the room already of athletics, but certainly we didn't want to overlook them. And I think it's great that you asked that question and we were able to talk about it. They're great, do a lot of research. It's really wonderful to have.
Absolutely. There's so many people that lead to our success.
Sure.
we've adopted a motto in athletics that says, together we are golden. And we put it on the back of t-shirts that we give to our student athletes. We have it on the wall of our office. And again, we really try to reinforce that philosophy that, none of us can have success on our own. We always need other people. And again, athletic training is a major part of the success that we have.
Yep, absolutely.
Yes, Paula says perhaps the athletic training growth could be added to the museum exhibit. I wish there's so many things we wish we could add to this exhibit. But as you can see, it's not the biggest room. The walls are filled as is. And we really did our best to try to fit as much as we could in as many varied disciplines as we can. Maybe sometime in the future, we could get a bigger room, get a whole building, and then we could include, every single major we have here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Is there another question? Anything else? You're good? We're good. Well, Jenna, you want to?
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. What a great presentation, and we hope to see all of you next year on January 12th at 7 p.m. for our next lecture and tour event. So we hope everyone has a great night, and Michael, thank you again.
Well, thanks. And also, we are doing one with Scott Heinrichs on health sciences later on in the year, next year. So stay tuned for that one as well, because I'm sure we'll talk about some of he's going to talk about new laboratories that we have, immersive labs and things. So I'm sure there's going to be some overlap as well that might be interesting.
Yep, that'll be February 2nd.
February 2nd. Coming up quicker than you know. Well, thanks, Terry. I really appreciate it. It's great. And thanks, Aaron and Sadie as well.
Of course.
Have a great evening, everyone.